So you want to help somebody with depression who doesn't want help. Hello, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Omar. I am a well-being coach and a mental health counselor. And inshallah, I'll be talking about something today which I think is fairly important. You might have found yourself in this scenario before, or you're just curious as to how you go about this if you're ever stuck in this scenario. So you know somebody who is going through depression, or something you've just noticed that they might be off a little bit. They're not themselves lately. They are just maybe a little bit reserved, not talking too much, not eating well, and you've just noticed like they're just not themselves, and you want to help them out. How do you go about this? It's a really sort of tough scenario to find yourself in. At times it can be really uncomfortable for you as well, in all honesty. So you try to speak to them, or you want them to go and seek some help, but they're just not having any of it. If you go and approach them and you try to talk, they might come up with things like, oh, I'm just tired, or no, I've just been a little bit, drained from work, or like they can come up with sort of excuses, and they might be valid, but a lot of the times we can say those things just to sort of brush off a very uncomfortable conversation, so we don't have to talk about it, and it's very common to not talk about your own health or mental health in particular. You might want them to go and speak to a mental health professional or their GP, and they're just not having any of it. They're just brushing you off, and it's a really tough situation to find yourself in, because you really want to help this person. It might be someone very close to you, and we know how serious mental health can be. So we've got the premise here. So we're not generally helping somebody with depression who knows what they're going through. We're trying to help somebody, or they may know what they're going through, but we're trying to help somebody with depression who doesn't want help, essentially. So there's actually one very main thing you can do. It's probably the biggest thing you can do. It's the biggest help that you can do. It's indirectly supporting them. So you may not be able to directly help them with their mental health issue, or whether it's a serious or non-serious issue. You may not be able to get them to go and seek a GP, but what you can do is, the biggest point of support that you can provide them is be an indirect support for them. I just used the word support twice. But what you can do is be an indirect support for them. So basically, you don't need to talk about their problems, because they're obviously, we can't force them to talk about it. We can't force them to go and see a GP. We can't force them to go and seek a mental health professional, but you can be there for them all the time. And what does this mean? It means being around for them. It means staying in touch with them, sending them a text message, giving them a call, instead of calling them once a month or once a week, depending on who it is, obviously, or if it's someone that you live with. But you just touch base with them. It might be sending them a text message. It might be just giving them a call. It might be going and having a lunch or having a coffee, but you don't have to actually talk about their problems. You just need to sort of be there for them. And I think this is probably one of the most powerful things you can do for somebody. You don't need to tackle the problem per se, but you are actually tackling the problem by being there for them. And this is huge. I think it's the number one approach anybody should take. Anybody around you that you know that might be struggling and you really want to help them out, just be there for them. Be there for them a little bit extra than usual. And you're doing so much more than you can think, honestly, so much more than you can imagine. I'm using my hands a lot again. So what's the thought process behind it? When you're going through a tough time, when you're struggling with a mental illness or symptoms of a mental illness, let's say, it can be really isolating. The loneliness can really sink in very, very quickly, because you feel like what you're going through is unique to you, which it is. But for people that have experienced any sort of mental illness, it can be really isolating. You feel like you're by yourself. You're struggling with it by yourself. Nobody understands you. You think you have to sort of deal with it yourself. And then add on top of that the stigma. You don't want to talk about it. You don't want to share with other people. They might think you're thinking that they might think you're weak. Like, we've got that whole stigma around it as well. So it's very like you're really lonely. Like, you can feel really lonely, even though that's not the way it should be. But that's just how it is a lot of the times. So being there a little bit extra for them and just being that indirect support is absolutely huge, and you will help somebody so much just by doing that. Just being there for them is just so powerful. Okay, moving on. Okay, so what else can we do? Well, I already touched on the fact that we can't force them to open up. We can't force them to go and seek a GP. So we can't push anybody to do anything. And that might actually make everything a little bit worse if you do that, trying to get someone to do something they're not comfortable with. So whilst you're providing that support and being there for that person, which is huge as it is, one thing you can do is sort of just find out what options exists for you in your local area. What options do they have? What mental health options or services exist? What direction should you take? And generally speaking, you should just probably advise, if somebody comes up to you, you should just advise them to go and seek a GP first and foremost so that they can do a mental health assessment of them. But just find out what other options, what other services exist. And there's probably a fair few things like counselors, psychologists, therapists, your GPs who are specialized in this sort of area. So you can just find out what services exist for them. So eventually, possibly when they do want to go, or you find the opportunity to share that information with them, or they want to seek some help, then you've got that information ready for them. And that's huge. That's literally the moment they come to you and ask for help, not only are you already there for them, which is amazing, but you've got information, you know how to direct them as well. Like, this is what we've got in the area, these are the services you've got, which is absolutely amazing. And in all honesty, did I just touch my mic? In all honesty, like, hats off to you if you're doing this for the people around you or for your loved ones. Yeah, it really is powerful. So the last thing that I want to share is probably a whole nother video, but I just want to touch on it really quickly. If they do open up and start talking about what they're going through, what do you do in this scenario? This can be so awkward for many of us, because the moment someone comes up to us with information about what they're going through, a struggle or an obstacle or a mental health issue, it can be really uncomfortable for us, because we want to help the person out, of course. We don't know how to help them out though. What people normally find themselves doing in this sort of scenario is we immediately give advice because we want to help them out, but we don't know what advice we're meant to be giving. We don't know if it's the right advice, but because we just want to help them out, we give that advice straight away, but we don't know if it's helpful or not. So what I would recommend is to do a lot more listening than you do advising. And the key here is, and I'll talk about this another time, but I don't want to sort of drain the video, but the key here is when somebody is going through a tough time, a lot of the times a huge relief that they can get, okay, let me rephrase that. Many times, just getting the things to talking. Okay, let me start again. Many times, just getting them to talk and get things off their chest is a huge relief for them. So this is where the power of listening comes in. Showing genuine care, empathy, and just listening to them, actively listening to them, showing them that genuine concern and allowing them to actually get something off their chest is huge. It's 10 times more powerful, and I don't mean any offense but when I say this, but it's 10 times more powerful than just slapping out random pieces of advice and say, do this or do that, or your iman is low, go and pray, and those sorts of things. You just listen to them. It's absolutely amazing. You'll do so much work just by doing that. But that's if they obviously do decide to open up and talk and that sort of thing. But I just wanted to touch on that because I think listening is such an important part of helping anybody with anything, not just mental health. So I thought I would just push that in there. So let's just recap quickly. So if somebody is going through depression or a symptom of depression that you may have noticed, how do we help them out? The first thing to do is just be there for them. Touch base with them, get in touch with them, just be an indirect support. You don't need to tackle the mental health concern or issue yourself directly, but just being there for them a little bit more than usual is super, super powerful, because as we mentioned, it can be a very isolating experience for the person going through what they're going through. They might not even be aware about what they're going through. The second thing that you can do is, what did I say? So we're not forcing them to do anything, but we are looking for what options exist. So if they do eventually seek help, then we can give them that information. What else? Oh, and listening. If they do decide to open up, what should we be doing? More listening than giving advice. It's very, very powerful, inshallah. Honestly, listening, it's just, we underestimate it. It's absolutely amazing. But yeah, that's it from today. Hello, me again. So if you've come this far, I hope you've found some form of benefit in this video, inshallah. I hope it's helped you out in some way or some form or some shape. I definitely stuffed up that sentence. But if you would like to support the work that's going on here, then you can subscribe to this channel, like the video, share it with somebody possibly. But yeah, that's it from me. Till next time. Assalamu alaikum.